I ask my colleagues if they wish to disregard my statement, with the exception of the statement by General David Petraeus. I don't know of a military leader that is more respected in America and throughout the world than General David Petraeus. I don't have to remind my colleagues he was commander of U.S. forces in Iraq, Afghanistan, director of the FBI, of the CIA, and who arguably has more experience dealing with foreign detainee issues across the U.S. government than any other American. And here are his words. These are the words of General David Petraeus. Quote, "I strongly support the extension of the provisions of the U.S. Army Field Manual that currently govern the actions of the U.S. military to all U.S. government personnel and contractors. Our nation has paid a high price in recent decades for the information gained by the use of techniques beyond those in the field manual, and in my view, that price far outweighed the value of the information gained through the use of techniques beyond those in the manual." I would urge my colleagues to listen to the words of David Petraeus. Here's a letter that I received this month from former intelligence interrogation professionals, U.S. military, CIA, and FBI. Here's an excerpt of a letter they sent this month. As intelligence and interrogation professionals who have offered our collective voice opposing torture and other forms of cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment, we strongly encourage you to support the amendment. On and on. The interrogation methods that have kept America safe for generations are sophisticated, humane, lawful, and produce reliable, actionable intelligence in any interrogation scenario. To promote a return to that respected level of professionalism, there must be a single, well-defined standard of conduct consistent with our values as a nation across all U.S. agencies to govern the detention and interrogation of people anywhere in U.S. custody. Supported by some of our most experienced military leaders. In a letter this month, 30 retired, including a former commandant of the Marine Corps, former commander of CENTCOM, former commander-in-chief U.S. Army Europe, among others, wrote the following, and I quote, "This amendment not only solidifies America's stance against torture and other forms of cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment, it also ensures that interrogation methods used by all U.S. personnel are professional and reflect the government's best practices. In that way, we not only ensure that these interrogations are humane and lawful, but also that they produce reliable intelligence on which we depend if we are to fight and win against the current terrorist threat." Mr. President, I ask the unanimous consent the letter from those individuals dated June 9, 2015 be included in the record, and the
without objection.
And the letter from the 30 retired armed military officers, including a former commander-in-chief of the Marine Corps, also be included in the record.
Without objection.
In a letter this month, the National Association of Evangelicals wrote the following in support of this amendment. Quote, "While the use of torture is currently prohibited across all government agencies by executive order, this fundamental principle must be enshrined in law to ensure that no future president may authorize the use of torture." That's from the National Association of Evangelicals. The Committee on International Justice and Peace of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops wrote the following in support of the amendment. "In Catholic teaching, torture is an intrinsic evil that cannot be justified under any circumstances, as it violates the dignity of the human person, both victim and perpetrator, and degrades any society that tolerates it." We urge all senators to support the McCAIN-Feinstein amendment that would help to ensure that laws are enacted so that our government does not engage in torture ever again. Mr. President, I respect the dedication and services of those charged with protecting this country. For 14 years, America's security professionals in the military, the intelligence community, and beyond have lived every day with a dogged determination to protect their fellow Americans. At the same time, we must continue to insist that the methods we employ in this fight for peace and freedom must always, always be as right and honorable as the goals and ideals that we fight for. I believe past interrogation policies compromised our values, stained our national honor, and did little practical good. I don't believe we should have employed such practices in the past, and we should never permit them in the future. This amendment provides greater assurances that never again will the United States follow that dark path of sacrificing our values for our short-term security needs. I also know that such practices don't work. I know from personal experience that the abuse of prisoners does not produce good, reliable intelligence. Victims of torture will offer intentionally misleading information if they think their captors will believe it. I firmly believe that all people, even captured enemies, possess basic human rights which are protected by international standards often set by America's past leaders. Our enemies act without conscience. We must not. Let us reassert the contrary proposition that it is essential to our success in this war that we ask those who fight it for us to remember at all times they are defending a sacred ideal of how nations should be governed and conduct their relations with others, even our enemies. Those of us who give them this duty are obliged by history, by our nation's highest ideals and the many terrible sacrifices made to protect them, by our respect for human dignity, to make clear we need not risk our national honor to prevail in this or any war. We need only remember in the worst of times, through the chaos and terror of war, when facing cruelty, suffering, and loss, that we are always Americans and different, stronger, and better than those who would destroy us.